They laughed when we arrived, not metaphorically, literally laughed. A chorus of harmonic, multitonal laughter from a dozen species that had long since outgrown emotion as a tool. The kind of laughter that echoed in the halls of the Galactic Assembly, captured and replayed in countless alien data streams. We were the hairless apes, fresh off our gravity-bound world, clinging to concepts like nationalism, combustion propulsion, and the primitive terror of nuclear fire. Our ships were metallic, inefficient, and loud. Our biology was fragile, unsymmetrical, and built for endurance rather than grace. Worst of all, we still used tools instead of becoming them. We didn't possess neural mesh consciousness like the San. We couldn't phase through solid matter like the Galzer. We hadn't merged with quantum probability fields like the Vurelians, and we didn't see time as an orb of interaction like the Timuri Ascendancy. No, we were embarrassingly physical, trapped in linear time, needing air, water, food, and sleep. To them, we were an evolutionary joke. It didn't help that our diplomatic envoy ship, the Ark Horizon, was built like a submarine mated with a skyscraper. No sleek antimatter reactors, no elegant lattice folding. Just massive thrusters, thick plating, and reactor shielding you could park a dreadnought on. When we docked at Elysium Station, the flagship platform of the Galactic Union, the docking clamps had to be retrofitted because no one expected a species to arrive with mass. Their first question wasn't about peace, culture, or unity. It was, why does your ship weigh so much? We answered with pride, redundancy, structural integrity, radiation shielding, in case something goes wrong. They laughed again. Species that thought in probability, matrices found the concept of something going wrong to be archaic. To them, failure was simply a statistical outlier in a well-optimized system. Redundancy was a waste of mass, shields were inefficient, the very idea of building for worst-case scenarios was like building a house out of steel in a place where wind doesn't exist. It was so primitive, we didn't argue, we didn't need to. Humanity had learned long ago that in places of great power, you don't speak loudly unless you want to be the first target. So we played the fool, listened more than we spoke, and observed. Quietly, carefully, we recorded everything. Behind the curtain of unity, the galactic community was fractured. Politics played out in strange dimensions. Multi-species alliances shifting like waves. Trade agreements reinforced by psychic debt. Wars fought in time loops and neural sublayers. Their ways were alien, elegant, precise, but brittle. They thought us stupid for using kinetic weapons. We thought them fools for relying on technomagic so tightly woven into their society that no one remembered how it worked. Our ambassadors brought culture, music, literature, art. We offered laughter, emotion, chaos, and they dismissed it all as noise. But here's the thing, humans do not stay weak for long. We were late to the galactic party, yes, but we showed up sober, with an engineering degree, a survivalist mindset, and a wrench in each hand. And we watched as the elder races played with tools they no longer understood, proud of how little they remembered. They didn't know what to make of us. We still used fire, still used muscle, still used risk. We were the only ones who built a fusion engine with fewer than 5 fail-safes, the only ones who asked, what happens if it explodes, and meant it. They underestimated us until the black hole screamed, until the gate collapsed, until the galaxy realized it didn't need elegance. It needed madness, and madness, that's our specialty. In the heart of humanity's scientific doctrine lies one unshakable truth. The laws of physics are not flexible. They are not suggestions. They are not dreams to be reimagined by those who think hard enough or believe deeply enough. They are brutal, cold, and absolute, and to us, that was never a limitation, it was a challenge. While the galaxy's elder species evolved to transcend their material forms, humans stubbornly refused to leave the real world behind. Our flesh and blood were fragile, yes, but our minds were relentless. We didn't curl inward toward enlightenment or push outward into spiritual resonance. We dug in, we experimented, we pushed machines until they failed, then rebuilt them stronger. Where others ascended, we adapted. Most advanced species developed technology so far beyond comprehension that they forgot how it worked. They merged biology with probability, consciousness with frequency, space with thought. They phased through walls. They navigated faster than light through intuitive, living ships bonded to their neural matrix. They whispered to dark matter and danced with gravity waves. We couldn't do any of that, so we built every bolt. Every rivet, every weld calculated. Nothing was mystical. Nothing was assumed. We didn't leap into hyperspace on instinct. We wrote software that calculated 1,000,000 safe routes before a pilot even blinked. We didn't alter time with our minds. We measured it down to Planck intervals with machinery colder than space. No living ships. For us, our vessels screamed with reactor heat and mechanical integrity. The galaxy called us old-fashioned, crude, but what they couldn't understand was that humans never relied on elegance to survive. We relied on certainty, and when things went wrong, not if, but when certainty was the only thing that mattered. They laughed at our obsession with thermonuclear energy. Why cling to such a violent, ancient form of power? They asked, because we understood it, every variable, every consequence. Fusion was not fickle. Fission didn't depend on ethereal moods or psionic fields. They were predictable, dangerous, yes, but never mysterious. And humans, perhaps more than any species in the galaxy, are intimately comfortable with danger. We trained our children to understand entropy. We built launch systems that killed test pilots and kept building anyway. We developed engines so powerful they could crack a moon, then locked them behind 20 dead man switches because we knew we weren't perfect. That humility wasn't weakness, it was our greatest strength, because it meant we always had a backup plan. The elder races saw this as proof of our inferiority. Why build a failsafe if you're confident in your perfection? Why armor your ships against micrometeorites when you can bend space around them? Because perfection is a myth, and space doesn't care how evolved you think you are. To them, gravity was something you manipulated gently, a curve to whisper around. To us, it was a wall to be climbed, a force to be fought, and nothing exemplified that more than our approach to black holes. They feared them, revered them, avoided them at all costs. Black holes, to the galactic community, were sacred boundaries, the abyss that even gods dare not challenge. To humans, they were problems, dangerous ones, but problems nonetheless. So we studied them, modeled them, theorized about their cores. Our scientists dedicated entire lifetimes to understanding the event horizon, the singularity, and what happened when energy met infinity. Not because we wanted to worship them, but because we knew someday we might have to fight one. We didn't seek elegance, we sought understanding. And when the galaxy needed a miracle in the shape of a machine, they turned to the only species too foolish or too brave to challenge a black hole with science. And a nuclear payload. The warning came as a whisper, faint, chaotic signals picked up on long-range detectors, then dismissed as background radiation by most galactic observatories. The Iltari Council analyzed it, then quietly deleted the report. The Vurelians, who could taste magnetic fluctuations in their third consciousness layer, recoiled in instinctive dread but said nothing. The Timmery ascendancy looped the signal through time probability matrices and immediately quarantined their sector in silence. Only humans ran toward the noise. It was nothing new for us, really. Throughout our history, we ran toward the danger others fled. Plagues, wars, collapsing empires, superstorms. We'd never been good at staying put when something terrible was about to happen. So when our deep space listening post on Titan picked up the anomaly, we didn't filter it out. We amplified it, and what we found was wrong. The anomaly wasn't just a gravitational echo. It was structured, pulsing, rhythmic. It wasn't broadcasting. It was beating like a massive wounded heart buried deep in space-time, and it was accelerating. Astronomers at first thought it might be the onset of a new kind of pulsar collapse, maybe even a black hole undergoing quantum instability. That alone would have been a galaxy-shaking event, but then we mapped the trajectory and realized it wasn't stationary. It was moving. More precisely, it was growing, feeding on a dense star cluster, accelerating as it consumed matter and warped the surrounding fabric of reality. But even more disturbing was its path. It was heading straight for the Cygnus Transit Highway, one of the busiest trade routes in the Galactic Union. The elder races panicked, quietly. Civilized races like the Virelians and Son simply restructured travel flow. Pretending everything was under control, the Timmery denied its existence entirely. No one wanted to admit what it might be, but humans had a word for it: artificial collapse, a weaponized black hole. It was a theoretical doomsday device first imagined in the 22nd century by an exiled astrophysicist named Ramirez, who proposed the idea of creating a directed singularity, an engineered anomaly that could swallow fleets, planets, even stars. Everyone laughed at him. His ideas were banned, his name buried, but some remembered, and when we ran the numbers, they matched precisely. Something had launched a weapon at the heart of galactic civilization. The Galactic Assembly froze. They had no protocols, no defense. The collapse anomaly defied their technology. Their ships couldn't get close without melting from gravitational lensing. Their quantum tech unraveled under its radiation. Their psionic interfaces screamed and went dark, so they turned to us. It wasn't out of trust or hope. It was desperation. They called it Project Aegis, a last-ditch effort to stop the artificial singularity before it reached populated space. The job: deliver a device to the edge of the event horizon, something powerful enough to destabilize the engineered anomaly, a final punch to the throat of entropy itself, the payload, an omega-core nuclear imploder, a relic from humanity's most dangerous century, designed not to create a bang, but to undo spacetime. Even we weren't sure it would work, but someone had to fly the mission, someone had to carry the bomb, and someone had to stare into the mouth of annihilation and not blink. Naturally, it was us, because when the universe built a weapon that terrified even the gods, only humans looked at it and said, "We built worse things in high school." Only humans pointed a ship at a black hole and called it a flight path, and only humans brought a nuke to a singularity fight. The mission wasn't a secret. It couldn't be. Not when every eye in the galaxy turned to watch the one species insane enough to challenge a black hole with brute force. The media nets across dozens of civilizations called it suicide, madness, an act of desperate primitivism. Some even celebrated, hoping this would finally be the end of the human problem. But we didn't care. While they debated our recklessness, humanity worked. The vessel chosen was the dauntless and aging deep space mining freighter retrofitted with experimental shielding, hull reinforcement, and a propulsion system that was barely more than a controlled explosion. She had been scrap-ready, left in orbit over Luna for almost a decade, but she had what mattered most: raw, analog strength, no psionics, no elegant biointerfaces, just thick armor, redundant systems, and a cockpit designed to be smashed and keep flying. The pilot, Captain Isla Saren, ex-military, court-martialed for insubordination, a veteran of asteroid combat ops. She'd flown into gravity wells that made other pilots puke blood. She volunteered before the committee had finished reading the briefing. "I wasn't trained for black holes," she told the press, "but I was trained to aim. The Omega core was a relic from a more savage Earth when humanity feared extinction at its own hand. A collapsing bombet's core encased in magnetic fields that, when released, would implode, not explode. It was built to erase matter. Theoretically, it could unspool the very geometry of a singularity by disrupting its rotational vector, but it had never been tested until now. The Dauntless launched from Jupiter's dark side in silence. No military escort, no fanfare, just one ship, one pilot, and a payload that could shake the laws of physics themselves. As she accelerated beyond light, delay zones, the final words from Earth Control were not instructions, but a simple farewell. Bring hell to the abyss. And so she did. The journey to the singularity wasn't a path, it was a descent. As the ship approached the edge of what ancient species called the void veil, gravitational turbulence began to stretch space like taffy. Shielding groaned, hull plating vibrated with sympathetic resonance. Time itself began to bleed around the edges. Most advanced species would have gone blind by now. Their minds weren't wired to handle raw, unfiltered entropy. Their ships were designed to avoid such places, not enter them, but Dauntless kept going. Isla adjusted by hand. She flew the damn thing like it was a dogfight, slamming vectors and rerouting thrust manually when the computers failed. And the anomaly pulsed it knew. Data streams came back distorted, corrupted, but within them were unmistakable patterns. The black hole wasn't just growing, it was reacting. It twisted in ways no natural formation should. It reached like a predator sensing prey. Isla didn't flinch. As the event horizon loomed like a yawning cosmic mouth, she released the final sequence. The Omega core detached, a glowing sphere of condensed terror, and began its descent on a vector as thin as a needle's eye. Any deviation, any wobble, and it would miss. But it didn't, because Isla Saren was human. The bomb fell. The ship didn't turn away. She rode it all the way in, past where telemetry died, past where even photons could no longer escape. Her last words, recorded by backup sensors, "Let's see how gods handle human engineering." Then silence. What followed was not an explosion. It was an unraveling. The singularity hiccuped, then twisted in on itself. Not gone, but broken, like a blade snapped mid-swing, the anomaly dissipated, the black hole collapsed, and the galaxy watched. The humans, they realized, had just done something unthinkable. They hadn't outrun a black hole. They had beaten it. In the days that followed the detonation, there was no cheering, no victory parades, no dramatic footage of survivors waving from their escape pods. There were no survivors. Isla Saren didn't come back. The Dauntless didn't limp home, and the Omega core didn't leave behind wreckage. What it did leave behind was a cavity in space-time, a gravitational wound that didn't collapse, didn't expand, didn't decay. It simply remained. The Galactic Union didn't know what to do with it. Their scientists called it the Saren Rift. Theologians across dozens of species began preaching about the veil that man touched. The Altari monks fasted for 9 suns, convinced they had witnessed the birth of a new kind of god, one forged in metal, madness, and mortal sacrifice. But we humans, we just kept working. We didn't make speeches. We analyzed, We recorded everything we could recover: scrambled sensor logs, trajectory echoes, fragmentary gravitational data. And we built simulations, and the results horrified even us, because the Omega Core hadn't just neutralized a singularity, it had redirected it. The energy had discharged not outward, but laterally, pushed into a folded dimensional pocket that now sat like a bruise in the fabric of space-time. And from that pocket, something echoed back. At first, it was just vibration, then signals, then patterns, mathematical, structured, recursive, alien. The black hole had been more than a weapon. It had been a doorway, and we had knocked. The galaxy reeled in fear. They begged us to stop transmitting, to stop analyzing, to stop listening. The Vurelians sealed off an entire sector of their home system with antimatter nets. The Timri broadcast a decree outlawing any mention of the human pulse. Even the ancient and aloof Delvani whispered of the second darkness, prophesied to return when a mortal species dared to grasp the abyss, but we weren't afraid, because we understood something the others didn't. This wasn't our first time at the edge. Humans have always danced with death. We'd seen extinction circling for centuries on our own world. We'd survived supervolcanoes, nuclear tension, ice ages, climate shifts, biological weapons. We'd flirted with our own annihilation so many times that it no longer stunned us. So when the voice came back, cold, distant, stretched across dimensions, older than language itself, we didn't run, we answered. And what the galaxy misunderstood, what it could never accept, was that we weren't opening a door for invaders. We were going through it. Humanity had always been restless. That trait others mocked our need to move, to grow, to push boundaries, wasn't a flaw. It was our defining strength, the same trait that built rockets from bombshells, that mapped galaxies with scrap probes, that turned one dying world into dozens of habitable colonies. They thought we sought conquest. They were wrong. We sought understanding, and when understanding failed, we sought mastery. The Sarin Rift became a monument, not to destruction, but to evolution. Around it, we built the first human singularity laboratory. No alien tech, no galactic permission, just pure, unapologetic human science. And when the Council tried to blockade us, to quarantine the area in the name of interstellar safety, we responded not with diplomacy, but with proof. We broadcast the dimensional equations of the Omega Core in open frequencies, and let them try to understand it. Most couldn't, because it wasn't elegant, it wasn't graceful, it wasn't refined like Timri crystal arrays or Delvani psionic lattices. It was brutal, direct, and effective. It was human. That was the day they stopped laughing at us. That was the day they stopped calling us reckless barbarians and began to call us something else, pioneers. Innovators, monsters, it didn't matter which word they used, because we'd proven something that could never be unproven. When faced with the death of stars, the collapse of space, and the abyss of the unknown, humanity didn't tremble. We engineered the response. The rift changed everything. It wasn't just a scar left by a forbidden weapon or the result of some reckless act of scientific hubris. It became the fulcrum of a new age. The rest of the galaxy tried to pretend it wasn't there. Some called it cursed space. Others marked it on stellar charts with religious glyphs. But we didn't look away. We built around it. The station was called Eventide. It orbited the Sarin Rift like a spider at the edge of a void. No other species dared approach within 10 light years, but humans lived there, worked there, studied the gravity fractures, and listened to the strange hum of dimensions rubbing together. The rest of the universe waited for something to come out of the rift, but nothing did. Instead, we went in, not all at once, not recklessly, but deliberately, calculated incursions with quantum tethers and inertia anchors, drones at first, then piloted craft with human volunteers. No species could understand why we would choose to enter something so fundamentally alien, so potentially lethal, but they didn't understand us. They still thought in terms of borders, of things to fear, of unknowns to avoid. But humans, real humans, never saw darkness as a warning. To us, it was an invitation, and what we found beyond that rift was not hell. It was possibility. The interior of the dimensional fracture was like falling upward forever. Gravity spun sideways, time hiccuped, the laws of physics tried to rewrite themselves on the fly. It was a place where space curled in on itself like a Mobius strip made of collapsing dreams, and yet it wasn't dead. There were structures there, massive constructs orbiting nothing, some dormant, some humming with power signatures that defied measurement, machines that couldn't have been built by hands, at least not by anything with flesh or bone, and symbols carved into the walls, burned into light, etched into probability. They were human, the same shapes that once decorated the stones of Göbekli Tepe, the same spiral patterns found in forgotten ruins at the bottom of Earth's oceans, the same fractal sequences discovered in ancient DNA. We hadn't opened a door into alien space. We'd come home. That was the final truth, the one the rest of the galaxy could never comprehend. We had been here before. Long before the Council, long before the rise of the Timori or the Virelians, before the stars had even finished cooling into life, giving warmth, humanity had touched this place, left its mark, and vanished. We weren't the young species, we weren't the newcomers, we were the returning architects. It explained too much, our uncanny adaptability, our resilience, our rage and brilliance and blind will to survive. We weren't evolving toward galactic civilization. We were rebuilding what we had once lost, a loop of memory written into our blood, a cycle of return. The galaxy could barely cope with the implications, because it meant every peace treaty, every law of physics, every border drawn in space, was built atop the bones of something older, something human, and now we remembered, not all of it, not yet, but enough. Enough to reawaken the long, dormant stations hidden in the deep halo of the rift. Enough to translate the star, road coordinates etched into the rift's echo signals. Enough to understand that the Omega War wasn't just a weapon. It was a key, and humanity had many more waiting to be found. The galaxy wasn't ready, but we didn't care, because we were never trying to conquer them. We were passing through, on our way back to the stars we once called home.